Reporter Jasmine Crockett's recent statements shed light on the crucial role Jack Smith is playing in holding Donald Trump accountable for his actions, particularly regarding his alleged crimes. Crockett argues that Republicans have intentionally avoided confronting the truth surrounding Trump's conduct, choosing instead to deflect and protect him at all costs. In her analysis, she points to the stark contrast between the actions of Smith, the special counsel overseeing the investigation, and the Republican Party's reluctance to demand accountability from a former president who appears to have breached numerous legal boundaries. Crockett's frustration is evident in her belief that Republicans have abandoned their responsibility to uphold the law in favor of political loyalty to Trump. Instead of acting in the nation's best interest, she contends, they have allowed partisanship to cloud their judgment, even as mounting evidence points to potential criminal conduct. Crockett is particularly critical of the lack of Republican support for the ongoing investigations, which she sees as essential for maintaining the integrity of US democracy and the rule of law. She urges her colleagues to prioritize truth and justice over political expediency, warning that failing to do so could have long-lasting consequences for the nation's political landscape. Ultimately, her comments serve as a call to action for those willing to confront uncomfortable truths and hold all individuals, regardless of their political affiliation, accountable for their actions.
Joining me now, one of the lawmakers on the House Judiciary Committee in that hearing today, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who, as you know, is also running for Senate in Texas. Congresswoman, thank you for being here. I know you're very busy with the work that you are doing. I want to begin with the fact that this was the very first time, really, that Jack Smith may have had his day in court, so to speak, publicly. He's wanted to testify publicly. You had advocated for that as well. Do you think that his ability to do so today was a good thing?
I do. I was receiving text messages as the hearing was going on from all kinds of people, other lawmakers, as well as just people back home that were watching. And so I think that it was an opportunity for America to see the credibility of the person who has really been put on trial when it comes to the public opinion, right? And that's been by the president. He has consistently said all kinds of nasty and threatening things about Jack Smith. But Jack Smith, as a prosecutor, and you know how this goes, as a prosecutor, he's not a political figure. So this is somebody who was kind of in the shadows. And basically, Jack's like, I am going to stand by my work. The only reason these charges got dropped is because you became president. And we know that that's why he ran, was so that he could avoid prosecution.
You know, you made the point earlier today as well that he had been criticized more for whether he had the authority to prosecute more than the actual substance of the allegations that grand juries indicted him on. Why do you think Republicans focus more on really process more than the result?
Because it didn't work out very well for them, right? They didn't want to talk about the actual subject matter, which the subject matter was the fact that the president needed to be prosecuted. And as I stated today, I am almost positive that if Jack Smith would have had his day in court and prosecuted the president, well, the president would be under the jail right now. But unfortunately, he never got to see that day for a number of reasons. One, obviously, involves Eileen Cannon, who is a Trump appointee and basically, I would just say, a Trump flunky.
Obviously, she is the judge who still has a remaining kind of gag order on the classified documents report out of Mar-a-Lago. So he was constrained to some degree of what he could actually say. Many believe there was a perjury trap that was already being set from his presence. And also, would he violate that order and get himself in hot water? Even without that, though, President Trump is calling for him to be prosecuted. In a long line of people, he's already called to be prosecuted. Your reaction?
Correct. Just like most of the other prosecutors that he's gone after, who are sound prosecutors that went after not the president, but they followed the evidence. And the evidence led them to this idea or the conclusion that the president is a criminal. And let me remind people, he is a 34-count convicted felon who was convicted by a jury of his peers. And so I know that Jack Smith is really tight on this. You know, I said in the closed-door deposition that he delivered where he talked about Volume 2 and basically said, I'm not allowed to speak about that because of an order, right? And so they were consistently trying to get him even behind closed doors. And so he's been very careful and methodical like a good prosecutor would be. And regardless of whether or not he respects Eileen Cannon standing as a judge or respects her lack of ability to process things in the way that we would expect of a jurist, he still respects the law. And that is the one thing that I want people to understand, is they were going after him and saying that this was nothing but a witch hunt and that it was weaponization. In the midst of all this drama, he's still saying that this rogue judge has a court order and he's abiding by that. That tells you everything that you need to know about who he is.
And yet they were criticizing his career as a prosecutor. He went to great lengths at different points to make sure he was differentiated from the person, Jack Smith, and the role of his office and representing the Department of Justice. Obviously, prosecutors are fungible. It's the people versus an issue. But there was an issue that really got under the craw of Republicans like Jim Jordan, and that was the subpoenas for phone records. Now, these subpoenas did not actually get the substance of the phone calls. No one's wiretapping through it. It's actually quite common, but you get the fact that a call was made and the duration and the telephone numbers. But then there was also a point about confidential sourcing and the payment. Did either of those 2 points, either in the first time you heard him behind closed doors or now, do you think that impacts his credibility?
No, absolutely not. The fact that he got toll records. Remember when the Senate decided to add in, when they reopened the government, $500,000 payments? Now, can you imagine that basically you decided that you were going to be on a phone call with a criminal, a defendant, right? And basically, as they are trying to develop their case and they are trying to figure out like who was where, making what phone calls, and to who and to how, that's all they were, was toll records. These were not wiretaps, right? Interestingly enough, today I also dealt with MLK and the declassification of those documents. And we were talking about Hoover and how Hoover tapped MLK's phones, right? Like, this is what the federal government did. And I also
That's the substance of the call, not just the existence.
Substance. Exactly. Not just the existence, right? But we know that this federal government, as they said that, oh, this was a weaponization by this rogue DOJ under the Biden-Harris administration, which is very weird, too, because, you know, Biden was coming in, but whole other issue. But nevertheless, and this was a special appointed prosecutor, right? But the idea that they have the audacity to make these arguments in a time in which ICE, of all organizations, has decided that they are going to spy on people. That is crazy. Like, you're mad that somebody sees that you made a phone call, yet you have nothing to say about, especially on today, where we went through our funding bill and you increased the funding to ICE. ICE is now the 5th largest funded military in the world. That is crazy. And they are consistently violating people's constitutional rights. That's not a violation of your constitutional rights whatsoever.
Identify the part about the spying. What is the reference you're making to ICE being allowed to spy? Are you talking about a memo to go into people's homes or something more?
No. Right now, what they are doing is getting technology to actually get at people's cell phones and that information. And so, to me, I don't know how far they're going to go with that, but that's what they're doing now.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you for joining.
Absolutely.
Professor Jasmine Crockett's analysis offers a pointed critique of Donald Trump's legal challenges and the Republican Party's refusal to hold him accountable for his actions. She strongly advocates for Jack Smith's public testimony, believing that it provided the American public with a rare opportunity to hear from the prosecutor at the heart of Trump's legal troubles. Crockett notes that while Trump has relentlessly attacked Smith, questioning his integrity and making personal threats, Smith has remained steadfast in his commitment to the law. For Crockett, Smith's ability to stand by his work and resist these political pressures is crucial, especially since much of the attacks against him have been politically motivated. She underscores that the true issue Republicans have with Smith's prosecution of Trump isn't the evidence or the legitimacy of the charges. Rather, it is the process itself. Instead of addressing the serious allegations of criminal behavior, Republicans have focused their energy on challenging Smith's authority to prosecute, shifting the conversation away from the substance of the case and onto procedural matters. Crockett also takes issue with the hypocrisy she sees in the Republican Party's handling of the situation. While criticizing the Justice Department's efforts, Republicans have simultaneously voted to increase funding for ICE, an agency she argues has been involved in serious constitutional violations. She specifically points to ICE's use of advanced surveillance technologies to monitor individuals' cell phones and communications, a practice she views as a dangerous overreach into citizens' privacy rights. According to Crockett, this expansion of surveillance and the lack of accountability regarding ICE's actions are symptomatic of a larger issue within the Republican Party, a willingness to undermine constitutional rights in the name of political expediency. This is especially concerning, Crockett argues, given that Republicans continue to criticize the Justice Department for investigating Trump while remaining silent on abuses committed by government agencies under their watch. In Crockett's view, the Republican Party's consistent refusal to engage with the core issues of Trump's alleged criminal behavior and their apparent disregard for the rule of law when it doesn't align with their political interests reflects a broader pattern of behavior that undermines the principles of justice and accountability. Her remarks underscore the deepening divide in the country between those who are committed to ensuring that justice is served, regardless of political affiliation, and those who prioritize protecting their political allies at all costs. Through her sharp commentary, Crockett calls for a return to accountability, urging Republicans to stop deflecting and address the very real, very serious issues at the heart of Trump's legal battles.